was just said to apostate prophet in his lead-up debate with a modern-day debate guy that then caused this dude to be taken off the lineup because he said his blood is halal and like all this craziness. You know, Alex O'Connor, like, you know, just dropped out of that debate.
What I can imagine is that a lot of the radicalization that is happening could be more prevalent here than it is in
Ruslan.
We came here as religious refugees,
right?
Because we were Armenian Christians, Christians in big air quotes,
right?
Living in Azerbaijan, which was a Muslim state,
right?
Both part of the former Soviet Union. Soviet Union was supposed to quell some of these big rifts happening within that. And as much of it was over the Nagorno-Karabakh region and the this autonomous zone in Azerbaijan that was technically Armenian, and that like there was land disputes. The paradigm of what I would say the Islamic worldview, I think it's fair for me to say tends to be more hostile and aggressive when it comes to force. They don't have a problem with taking it there. Generally speaking, I know I'm probably hyper generalizing. And so like, I think now let me flesh this out to the grassroots, right? Now, when you're talking like these folks will just flat out say like, yeah, like if you're an apostate, I think we think we should, you know, get you out of here. And this isn't like once or twice. Like this has been said multiple times. This was just said to apostate prophet in his lead-up debate with a modern-day debate guy that then caused this dude to be taken off the lineup because he said his blood is halal and like all this craziness, right? So they took him off. But I mean, you know, so this is being said like now.
Yeah.
Whereas like within the Christian paradigm, someone who deconverted, we're like, dude, come hang for the week. Come here for the weekend. Like, be around my family. Like, it's all love. We love you, you know? And so I think there is something to just saying, hey, generally speaking, if we're going according to their book, there seems to be a willingness. Now, again, not everyone goes according to the book.
Right.
Not all Muslims are going according to the book. Some of it is just cultural. They like Ramadan. They like the prayers. It gives them order and structure.
Yeah.
But when we say, now, what does the book teach, right? In the Christian paradigm, the book seems to teach, hey, welcome in the outsider, welcome in, you know, the non-believer. Even the Christianity tends to be harsher on the believer who's living unrepentant than it is on the outsider. You know,
sure.
And so it's like it's just interesting. Like it's an inverted paradigm. And again, I don't want to hyper generalize like all Muslims, but it is interesting to see folks being critical. Then everyone's very quiet. And now even like you got, you know, Alex O'Connor, like, you know, just dropped out of that debate from the modern day debate. This is James, he put this up. He said, due to concerns over Islamic extremism potentially threatening the safety of the upcoming debate con, Alex has decided not to attend. And after careful consideration, I've decided the debate con will go as planned. Islamic extremism will not stop this event. So there's two people now dropping out of this debate because of Islamic extremism.
Sure,
you know?
sure.
So it's just, I just say all that to say, like, I think there's something to this idea of according to main things or plain things are main things of reading of their text. It's not outside the realms to say stuff like, yeah, like we think apostates should be killed.
Right.
You know, and we're going by the book on that.
Again, there's so many different factors involved, and it's difficult for me to like speak to really what's happening on the ground level.
Sure.
I can recall when I was living in Jordan, we talked to a guy there who was kind of a part of like the Jordanian FBI, you know, whatever the equivalent is. And somebody asked him like, oh, well, have you ever, you know, dealt with somebody who was sympathetic to ISIS or something like that, you know, somebody who was being radicalized. And he was like, only once. You know, it was some 16-year-old kid who was like in some weird chat rooms. And so like FBI, Jordanian FBI, whatever they're called, like went, knocked on his door, had a chat with him, and never again. That was the end of it. So I think about...
So you're saying you just don't know how prevalent this really is amongst common lay Muslims.
Yeah, and what I can imagine is that a lot of the radicalization that is happening could be more prevalent here than it is in, you know, predominantly Muslim countries like Jordan.
Okay.
Jordan's an amazing place, and the Muslims there, I think, are very modest.
Sure.
And so I could imagine that, for people who come here, it's so disorienting, having to learn this entirely new culture that, I don't know, maybe the pendulum swings so far to the other side. You went from an incredibly conservative country to this hyper liberal country, and your reaction is to double down and get into more and more austere territory with your faith.
It's probably jarring culturally to come here.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
If you grew up in a culture where the hijab is the norm, I'm sure it's disorienting going to a beach for the first time.
Yeah, that's fair. What do you make of Alex O'Connor specifically dropping out of it? As an atheist, I think we all wanted to see him debate David Wood on
for sure.
Jesus claim to be
I would
God.
have paid money to see that debate.
I have a massive update for you. I'm sure by this point, you've heard about the Blessed God Summit happening March 27th, 28th, 29th here in beautiful Carlsbad, California. But we've heard your requests. We've conceded to your demand. There are virtual tickets that are now available for the Blessed God Summit, so you can access it from anywhere in the world, as well as access to the replays. And for those of you guys that are looking for something extra, we're also offering a virtual ticket and an exclusive Bless God Summit merch bundle. There's some amazing art and some exclusive pieces done by our friend Josh Nadeau from Sword and Pencil that you have to check out. So join us online for the virtual event and experience some sessions from my favorite podcasters, pastors, and performers. We have a stacked lineup. I'm talking about Preston Perry, Dr. Sean McDowell, Inspiring Philosophy. What do you mean? Lila Rose, Alan Parr, and his wife Jen Parr. We even have Nate Sala from Wise Disciple, Gavin Ortland, David Wood, Avery from God Logic Apologetics. And on the pastoral side, we have my friend Daniel Golding, Pastor Ed Newton from CBC in San Antonio, and my personal pastor from Rhythm Church, Pastor Jeff Moores and his wife Erin Moores. You won't want to miss out from amazing performances from America's Got Talent winner Dustin Savella, Billboard charting hip-hop artist John Keith, and Miles Minnick. And we're still finalizing a few more speakers. So head over to blessgod.shop, get your virtual ticket now, and you can get yourself a bundle with some of the exclusive merch as well. I'll see you over there, all right? Peace.
If I was there and I was in the front row, some of the blood from them fighting together might have splashed onto me.
Anointing oil on you.
Exactly.
So are you bummed out that he dropped out, or are you just kind of you get it?
It's difficult because I don't know what he's seeing. I don't know what specific threats were posed to him. I don't know, what emails he read.
Yeah.
So it's difficult for me to gauge the severity of the threats. I'm not going to knock him for saying, hey, I'm going to prioritize my safety over this. To anyone who was genuinely threatening the safety of, innocent attendees trying to have a theological debate, screw off. But then, so I can't knock him for it. I don't think that he would have, he's put himself into some really dicey situations. He's not a coward. He did the 1 versus 25 on Jubilee lately. I think if he's willing to do that, then that suggests to me that he has a propensity to run into danger.
Yeah.
So if he was backing out of a debate like this, then I'm more tempted to say that it was probably for a valid reason.
Tell me if this is unfair. I guess the frustration with me, if I'm being honest with you, is, hey, atheists, give us our flowers. If a worldview is judged by how it treats outsiders and enemies, we kind of got it on lock as Christians. How about you give us our flowers and just concede that Christianity as a worldview, if we're looking just from a secular standpoint, is more engaging of the outsider and willing to welcome in the person that may be an enemy, may be hostile, may be just someone that's on the outskirts, and love and embrace them. And maybe we should categorically deal with it differently than how we do with all religion, right? Which is kind of bringing it back full circle to the new atheist. Hey, give us the flowers that we've added a lot of good to the world, and we continue adding a lot of good in terms of philanthropy.
Sure.
But not philanthropy just for our own, philanthropy to people that aren't our own. Philanthropy in terms of sending resources and means to parts of the world that have nothing to do with Christianity. Like I bet you if we were to do a through line of how many people are actually donating to Palestine right now, probably a lot of Christians that completely disagree with them ideologically,
Right.
on every front about everything, but still saying, hey, we're going to put our money where our mouth is, and we're going to try and get means and resources to these people to the best that we can. Even people who are Team Israel, right? Not to make that a binary, are people I know personally are donating to causes that they want to see people be protected and cared for and have human rights and dignity extended to them, right? And is it unreasonable for me as a Christian to just say, Alex, fill in the blank, Mr. Atheist, Matt Delahanty, New Atheist, just give us our flowers, and that like Christianity is a superior worldview versus in terms of how we deal with the outsiders. And that, I'm making it very myopic to get to be very, very, very specific on dealing with outsiders or enemies. It seemed because of the Christian message, we have a superior framework with how to deal with people like that.
I'm not as well read on Islam as I should be.
Okay.
I've read through the Quran, but I'm not an expert. I haven't read all the Hadith.
Sure.
I can't say from my level of knowledge that Christianity is categorically more accepting of the outsider. We're talking about, very specific permutations of Islam that are hypercritical of Islamic critics. It's too difficult for me as an outsider to say, what is the mere Islam,
the mere Christianity version of Islam.
Exactly. What does that say about the outsider? So when I was in Jordan, I hate to keep bringing up my stupid study abroad.
Yeah, that's fine.
But we walked into a lounge and just the setting there was like, we would walk around and they would see, a group of white people, and they would yell out to us from across the street, welcome to Jordan. We are so glad that you are here. And it was so warm and so hospitable. We walked into like a cafe, and the owner walks out and sees us, and he shakes all of our hand, and he pays for our entire meal. I mean, like a really expensive, huge, I think it's called magluba meal. And so, and even going back, there was like an old Bedouin tradition in Jordan that if a stranger comes to visit you, he has to stay with you for 3 days, and you have to provide him lodging before you are even allowed to ask why they came to visit. It was that level of hospitality. So I see that in the Islamic world, and I also see this hypercriticism, this jihadist instinct, and it's difficult for me to say which one is true Islam,
which one's of the book,
right? Which one is the most legit. So, but even then, there's a separate question there, and we were talking about this with biblical literalism versus streams of Christianity like Catholicism or Orthodoxy, which are largely informed by tradition. So, you can look at the Quran and say, well, I've read the Quran as a non-Muslim, and it's, bad and terrible and no good, and that's the end of it. I think it's super important to read it within the confines of an Islamic tradition. And I've attempted to do that. I'm still attempting to do that. But from my vantage point, it's too difficult for me to make any kind of judgment call about how accepting or not accepting true Islam is towards the outsider.
Interesting. Yeah, I think we would disagree on that. And I think you're being very delicate as someone that is attempting to be charitable towards religion. And I get it. I think even looking at hadiths and folks that do work in that world, and then also having people that are close to me in that world.
Sure.
I think it's a pretty, there's a through and through line between the text and the hadiths and some of this behavior that we would say just as people who value people, this is deplorable, this is bad, and needs to be condemned.
Right.
I think there's a clear through line from Quran to hadith to the outstreams of their worldview. And I think what you're seeing, maybe there is some of that stuff there as well. Obviously, everyone cares for people, but maybe some of that is outside sources. Maybe some of that is tradition. Maybe some of that is the Imago Dei and is the common grace of God that's extended to all believers in terms of intrinsically knowing how to be hospitable.
Right.
Maybe it's not. I don't know. But we don't have to harbor on Islam the whole time. Especially because it's not your area of expertise, and neither is it my area of
Well,
expertise.
it's not my area of expertise. It is an area of my interest. My last album, Ishmael, was a conversation between Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. So,
Which, by the way, you played some of it for me,
I did.
and your album's very good.
Your ears didn't bleed.
It didn't, but it was like, oh man, this is actually kind of fire from a technical standpoint, right? Like understanding some of the time signatures that are being used and the switch ups. I was like, man, this is really good. So you are an enigma in that I have a feeling that you're one of those guys that's good and proficient in multiple things, and being a musician, and then you were playing me all this like beautiful classical music on my upright piano. I was like, wow, Jared is.
I think your 10-year-old was
Very
outplaying me, man.
Yeah, right.
He's talented.
Outplaying you.
Hey, we're going to go to the Patreon-only extended version of this conversation. Consider signing up for a free 7-day trial where you could see the entire conversation and get access to all of our future podcasts, be able to interact with our guests, and much more. Here's a little preview of what's available on Patreon. I'll see you over there.
Oh, this is interesting, man. Like the angle of atheist churchade. Someone who is going in and touring churches and just kind of giving their honest thoughts.
So that was the night that I, earnestly prayed to God, God, please be real. I love the Jehovah's Witnesses, and I hate their system. They're wonderful, friendly, awesome people, but the Watchtower is an evil cult. It's really bad.
Ruslan.